I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She's auditory, oh yes, auditory mentor, and of course, an author too. She's the author of the book My Voice Beyond Hearing Loss, no other than Miss Maureen Covinsky.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Maureen. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
What was that? Say it again.
Can you please introduce more about yourself?
Okay. Well, my name's Maureen, and I'm originally from suburban Chicago and moved out to Arizona about 21 years ago. Spent most of my career in retail, working retail, and then as a pharmacy technician. And then found my passion, and found my passion is advocating for people with hearing loss, and chose to started writing a book like 2 years ago about my hearing loss story and the ahas that I had during not only my journey, but while I was writing this book, and thought that sharing it with the world, as the case may be, I could be helping others navigate their own hearing loss story and not only survive, but thrive.
Miss Maureen Covinsky, yeah, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. What was the catalyst that made you decide to write this book and share your story so openly?
Well, I actually joined when I decided that I wanted to do something more with my life besides just working in what was my day job. I joined a business mastermind, and one of the things that my mentor asked me to do was to write my hearing loss story. And I always tell the story because I originally said no. I'm not a writer. I can't do that. But then the next morning, I started writing, and I worked from home, and I was almost late because I started writing, and all of a sudden I looked at my clock, and it was 6:55, and I started at 7 a.m. in the morning, and I'm like, oh shoot, I need to turn on my computer and everything and get myself all ready. So that first writing, when I wrote that story, it ended up being like about six pages, which is probably 5.5 pages more than I ever wrote before.
So
and then,
fast.
yeah. So, and then, over the course of 2 years, and I took some time off. I took about, I had some like writer's block for a while, so I took some time off, and I actually wrote a workbook for my coaching clients that I would like to use. And then beginning in January of this year, I came back and said, I need to finish this. And I had it finished in about 3 months. So, and here we are. And you have the picture up there, and I have this here. Here we are.
Yes, congratulations again for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Miss Maureen, the title mentioned discovering your voice. How did your definition of voice change throughout your journey?
That's a hard question to answer sometimes because at the beginning of my journey, people tell you that I was really quiet. I didn't really talk much. I didn't tell people what I thought or what I was thinking. And during my journey, as I went to different events and everything, and some people saw me all the time, at these events all the time. every time I would go to a new event, I started speaking up more, talking more, giving my opinion more. So, and then just even, writing this book and putting this out there, um, there's a big vulnerability in telling my story and telling the things that I, talked about in my book, um, and making myself vulnerable is, it was something that I never really did before. And now that the book's out, obviously, I have done that.
Totally, totally done, Miss Maureen. For someone who has not experienced hearing loss, what is the most important thing you want them to understand about from reading your book?
Someone who hasn't had who doesn't have hearing loss, is that what you said?
Yes, yes.
Um, I think, especially people who may not have hearing loss but know somebody who has hearing loss, what they'll get from it is an understanding of what their friend or relative is going through. It'll give them hopefully some empathy to their struggles, and hopefully, my hope is that if they were to read this, they would not only understand that, but make things a little easier for their friend or relative, whether it is making sure when they are talking to their friend or relative that they're looking at them, that they're talking slowly, and not it doesn't necessarily have to be loud, because sometimes when you speak louder, it actually distorts the sound. So hopefully, my book will allow those people to understand what someone that is suffering from. I don't want to even use the word suffer. Who's going through hearing loss? Sorry, is going through.
Yes, definitely. And Miss Maureen, what was the most difficult emotion to grapple with other your hearing loss, or well, with after your healing loss, and how did you move through it?
I would say, I mean, there's a lot of different emotions that you go through. Um, I think anger is probably a big one, especially when you start losing your hearing. So I didn't start losing my hearing until um, where it became a real issue until my mid 30s. So having started your career and stuff like that, there's a lot of anger that goes with that, because uh, you can't understand people when people. I worked in retail. I was a manager. I was an assistant manager. So not being able to understand my customers and stuff like that. Not being, and then going into, in the personal life, even going out with friends and going to a restaurant was very frustrating, and not being able to communicate with others was hard. And I think I put through some things to help me with that. Like when going out to restaurants, when I go out with people, I try to make sure I'm, um, if it's not a round table, sitting at a small table where the people I'm with, if it's only like two other people, that no one actually sits next to me, that they sit across from me so I can see them. Because there's restaurants that are pretty noisy. Even going into a restaurant and trying to ask for a quiet table, if possible, away from the kitchen and bar. Those are things that are helpful for me and would be helpful for other people as well that have hearing loss.
Miss Maureen, you write about discovering inner peace. What did that process look like amid the frustration and grief?
I mean, there came how I found inner peace. I mean, there came to a point where I become more comfortable with myself. I became more comfortable with my hearing loss and admitting my hearing loss. So when I started admitting it to everybody, admitting it to myself, that was very peaceful in a way, because now I took control. My own control over what was going on in my life. So that certainly created inner peace. I also are very, do various self-care routines, and I started with massages and meditation, breathe, doing breathing exercises, stuff like that. That's what's helped me um, create inner peace. I have also found my tribe of women that support me and everything that, support me in pretty much everything I do. Um, so having that support also, helps with the inner peace as well, and the freedom and also the confidence.
Confidence, indeed. So let's talk about practical challenges and adaptations, Miss Maureen. What was the most surprising or unexpected daily challenge you face?
Well, one of the more recent challenges would have been during COVID. Um, I was working retail at the time, and everyone started wearing masks. So it was surprising to me that once people started. I always thought that I couldn't hear on the phone well, um, but when people started wearing masks, I had a trouble with the people in front of me, understanding what they were saying. Um, and then I got a and then my job after that, I was on the phone 90 to 95% of my day, and I was able to actually hear better on the phone. So um, COVID and masks, and when I can't see people's faces, um, was very challenging at that time, and it's still. I mean, in some ways, it still is. I do need people to be looking at me to make sure that I can see what they're saying. See them, and being you know people that have hearing loss, including myself, are very visual people. We need to see things. We need to see people's mouths and stuff like that.
Interesting, Miss Maureen. What's one practical tool or communication strategy you discovered that made a significant difference in your life?
A communication strategy. I would say that, as I said, I think making sure that I'm in a well lit area, that the whoever I'm with is aware that I have hearing loss, and letting them know that you know would like them to face me when they're talking. I can't make them face me when they're talking, but I could ask. And Being in situations where there's not a lot of background noise and a lot of people talking, sometimes that's certainly helpful.
Miss Maureen, let's talk about the finding confidence and advocacy. Where did you find the initial spark of confidence to advocate for yourself in a world not designed for hearing loss?
I think the initial confidence came from, as I said, when I left retail, and people, I couldn't understand people in front of me, and I actually took my next job um, as in a retail pharmacy where I took calls from doctors, sometimes patients, and insurance, depending on what team I was on, patients or insurance companies, doctors' offices, and realizing that I'm actually pretty good on the phone. So I think, being able to do things that make you realize that you can do things, that hearing loss doesn't have to hold you back. Um, Also, again, finding my tribe. I keep going back to that, but finding my tribe and having people support me, and having that support was so important. Not only at the beginning, as I was leaving my first job and going to my second one, but as I was starting this career with my book and my my business, having that support was very helpful in developing a lot more confidence than I had before.
Miss Maureen, can you share a story of a time you had a fiercely advocate for yourself and what you learned from that experience?
when I had to advocate for myself. In my last job, I was moved over a team where we took inbound calls, and I had found that the headphones that I was given from the company weren't good enough for me to understand inbound calls enough. So I went to HR. I sent them I filled out a form and I said, I need to get Bluetooth enabled headphones for me to do um, my job to the best of my ability. And that took a couple months. I actually first filled out the wrong form, so it went to the wrong team. So I had to like start over. But I eventually got those headphones, and they were much, much better, and the sound was much clearer. So I mean, but it took a while, and it took me advocating for myself and calling them and saying what's going on, when am I going to get these? It takes persistence sometimes to advocate for yourself. It's not always an easy job for you. People, especially in corporate, sometimes in corporate America, they have, avenues that you have to go to and you have to navigate, and ultimately being patient and just keeping at it is the most important thing to do to advocate for yourself. And that's on the business side, but on the personal side, just making sure that um, um, making sure that people know that you have hearing loss, and um, doing what you need to do to hear your best at whatever event or social event you're at.
Miss Maureen, as auditory mentor and author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Whoops, can you repeat that question? Sorry.
What are your short-term and long-term goals?
For auditory mentor, or
Yes, as an author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
um, I mean, as an auditory mentor, I hope to help others, through my workbook on emotions, to help others find ways to um, ask, or what they need to do in order to lower that emotional threshold down, whether it's anger or um, um, frustration and stuff, and other right now I forgot the other emotions I have in my book, so sorry. I'm a little nervous.
No
So
worries. No
so I mean,
worries
that's
at
part of
all.
what's working through what they need to do to get through that emotion, and to be more proactive with their self-care, and being able to communicate to others what their needs are.
Very well said, and good luck to your goals, Miss Maureen, and looking forward for more success. What will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be an author like you?
Advice for what now?
For those want to be an author like you.
um, I think everybody has a book in them if they find what they're passionate about. My best advice would be to find what you're passionate about, whether it's hearing loss, or if you like, if for instance you like cooking and stuff like that. Um, finding finding or photography. I also love photography, so being able to find what you're passionate about and write about it, something that hits close to hits could evidently hit close to home for you. I didn't think I was a writer, but I found what I was passionate about, and that's hearing loss and advocating for others and helping others to get to a point where they're confident in their abilities to be out in the world and to communicate and to have social connections or whatever they need in their life. So find your passion is, I think, the most important part.
Indeed, find your passion, people. If you have the passion to write, write, and share to the world. And Miss Maureen, can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Um, I have several. I'm going to look at. I have them in my book in the back. Um, so I'm just gonna. I have some book recommendations that I found very helpful for me in my hearing loss, and that was hearing loss journey. And that's the first one was "Why Shouting Won't Help: Why I and 50 Million Other Americans Can't Hear You," and then that's from Catherine Bouton. And one of the people that wrote endorsement for me. She has a book with her partner Sherry Eberts, and that's Here and Beyond: Live skillfully with hearing loss. Um, and I also have a book in here called Audacious Optimism: The Mindful Choice to Live Boldly and Create Endless Possibilities, and that's by Shayna Adamick. Hopefully I pronounced her name right. So those are three of the books that I've really enjoyed in the last few years that have helped me. Um,
Well, thank you for the recommended books, Miss Maureen. And
and also
before
mine.
yes, and yours for sure. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Maureen, if you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice at the start of this journey, what would it be?
Um, I would say it would be one of my aha moments that I have in my book, and because I also had a mother who had hearing loss as well, so I grew up with that before I had my own, and I would say sometimes what we felt as kids wasn't the full story.
Definitely. Miss Maureen Covinsky. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your book?
Say it again. Sorry.
Can you please invite our listeners to support your book?
Okay, perfect. Well, you can find my book on Amazon.com, and you can look it up by the title, My Voice Beyond Hearing Loss, or you can go to my website, or my page, not quite a website yet, it's just a page, which is www.hearetohearyou.com, and that's hear, HEAR, the number 2, HEAR, the letter U.com.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Maureen Covinsky. Yes, because if you support her, for sure, more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Miss Maureen, thank you so much for your time.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
More to come, people. See you soon.